Okay, Whitworth Nuts, taking you for a ride along in my 96 Miata. Somebody on the forum had requested a ride along when I first said that I had sold my Spitfire and bought this, and so I thought I would do that. Basically now I've done over 500 miles in this car, and along the way I've been trying to see, there's another red Miata right there, the guy didn't wave. That's one thing I can tell you off the bat in terms of owning a Miata. You don't have the same kind of camaraderie that you do with British cars. My last cruise in my Spitfire, I was out and I had a Jag E-Type coming at me, and I got the wave, and I think that's important. Not to say that the Miata culture is less than the British culture in terms of the camaraderie, but it's just not the same. There are plenty of Miata owners out there that I think that appreciate that kind of thing. I certainly am one of them, but at the same time, it has a different vibe. To kind of take that point one step farther, in the amount of time I've owned this car, which is now about 3 weeks, I've been looking for something about it that I don't like, and really the only thing I can say is that it's just not a British car. It doesn't have the same lines, doesn't have the chrome, it doesn't have the same vibe to it altogether. I mean, I could take my Spitfire out, and people who know nothing about cars would look at it and say, wow, that's a pretty cool car you got there. And I kind of feel like I'm defending the Miata every time I talk about it, because in general I think people just don't think of it as a real car, or they look at it with that idea that it's a hairdresser's car, or however you want to say that. Ultimately though, I think if you know cars and if you've driven one, you can appreciate it for what it is. It is certainly in the same category in terms of the spirit as the British Roadsters that I think you all love. And so I encourage you to give it a chance if you haven't driven one, or if you have a preconceived notion about it. Maybe just give it the benefit of the doubt and go out and drive it, because truly the driving experience is that good. Aside from the performance of the car, it really is just comfortable. This morning here in New England, it was about 45 degrees or so. Driving to work with the top up is a very comfortable experience. The heat works. You can regulate the temperature of the heat very easily. It's a modern car in that sense. So with all of that, it makes it easier to drive. It's less work. And again, the idea of the work that goes into not just owning a British car but driving it is part of the charm that originally drew me towards it. But just to give you an example, with the top on this car, I mean, I can put the top up and down in just a matter of seconds, whereas with the Spitfire, I'd have to get out, I'd have to button up the back of the car and so forth, and obviously as it gets colder, that gets more difficult to do. So, this car is one that I can drive almost any day of the week. I don't drive it in heavy rain, and I don't plan to drive it after first snowfall, because I don't want to expose it to the salt and other road treatment and so forth. But ultimately, it could be a daily driver, which is really nice. You're up and away a little bit. Drop it in a second. Just give it a little gas. There, and now forward. The setup of the car makes it really easy to do some heel toe shifting, which I had a hard time doing in the Spitfire, but as you can see, or maybe hear I should say, it does want to go when you step on it. It's a lot of fun. Just to summarize, I love I love British cars, and I loved having a Spitfire. It certainly became part of the family. I feel like I knew just about everything there was to know about that car, and it was my first real project car, so letting it go was difficult. I think it was a good move though for me at this particular time in my life, because the fact is I love to drive, and I really enjoy working on cars and bringing things back to life and refreshing things, and I enjoy the simplicity of Spitfire, but it was too much upkeep for me on a regular basis. I want to drive the car this time of year in the fall in New England. You just can't beat it. I want to see the leaves. I want to get out and enjoy that crisp morning. You know, I want all of it. And ultimately, I just don't have enough time in my schedule right now to go out to the garage every night and work on the little bits that are falling out. I mean, the car really was ready for a full overhaul, and I just couldn't do that. So, you know, me being in a Miata that I can drive basically any day I want is the best situation right now. And it still has the feel of the British car. I mean, like a bare bones feel. You know, like I said before, you don't get the cool factor. People don't see you coming and give you a thumbs up. But at the end of the day, as a driver in the seat, you know, the handling is nice, the acceleration is swift, and it's just a lot of fun. And so I think the best of both worlds for me, the best scenario, if I could afford another car and have the room for it, which I'm working on rearranging the garage to accommodate for that, would be to have a long-term project, you know, another Spitfire, maybe an early Mark II Spitfire is my favorite look. I actually just missed, there was a Mark I Spitfire for sale up in New York near me. They were asking $500. I think it was a 67, and it needed full restoration, but it's a Mark I Spitfire, and you don't see that very often, so I'm kind of kicking myself for not buying it, but I couldn't make it happen. It sold like within a couple of days of being posted on Craigslist. So, you know, I think that's kind of my hope, is to get a project, something I can enjoy working on with my kids at some point, my friends, but right now I'm just gonna drop it into fourth gear and have fun. One last thing, Miatas are kind of appreciating in value right now. I don't think they'll ever be, at least not in my lifetime, worth a tremendous amount of money. There were over 1 million made, but because they are the most raced car out there, and because they're cheap, a lot of times kids get them and they basically hack them up and put stupid aftermarket parts on there, which has its place if it's tastefully done, but that's not always the case. Also, a lot of people seem to park them outside and just don't take care of the drainage, and so therefore they rust out from the rockers and so forth, and they haven't quite hit that point where people have really been restoring them. So if you can find a good example, especially of a first generation NA Miata, I would recommend you grab it. This one here has the 1.8 liter motor, which is the largest option for this car. It also has a limited slip diff. Both are very desirable, obviously. It's also an AC and power steering car, which a lot of people like to remove both of those to give it more feel. I'm trying to keep the originality intact, at least at this point. So, but I guess the point is that if you can find one that isn't hacked up and is straight and rust-free, you know, it's not a bad buy. It seems to be going up in value as opposed to down.